So, I work in retail and due to this, have had a few weird encounters with middle-aged men. The most recent, however, really shook me and was unexpected. A man around 70 walks into the shop on his phone. He's in a suit, so already he was overdressed for the shop, and he just gave me weird vibes from the get-go. He was on the phone talking to someone and browsing around. He made a beeline for me. I was sorting something on a shelf and expected him to ask for some help with something, but as he had walked within earshot, I heard, "And she's got the most gorgeous long hair. Yeah, it's lovely in auburn." And a long plait that the inner boy inside me is dying to pull, but I think she would get mad. It literally made my hair stand up on end. I walked directly to the staff room and pretended like I was making coffee. And I came out after he left and told my male colleague, who was horrified and asked if I was okay. I have one that calls me precious in the creepiest voice, and another one would come in every shift that I worked and would stay for hours. He also found out my birthday and made me this little jar waterfall thing that was engraved with my name and love from a weird nickname that he had given himself. Definitely a bunch of weird experiences, and I hope that I don't have any more. Some background information. I'm Chinese and my family was going to Canada to see my family in Niagara Falls. I still have random flashbacks to this incident, but I randomly had a nightmare yesterday about it. This is just to bring awareness that no matter how somebody looks, they can still be a creep. So it was in the afternoon and my father asked me to get the laundry for him down the street from our apartment. I have crappy parents, so if I said no, there would be severe consequences. He gave me a bag and I left. I had no money or phone, just a chocolate bar and a bag. I remember so clearly that I was wearing a pink unicorn shirt with glitter and denim shorts. I was pretty tall for my age, but still pretty thin. The laundromat was near McDonald's, and it had a huge window to see inside. I head inside, and it still had a while, so I sit on the bench and eat my chocolate bar. This dude comes in with a backpack. He had a white tank top on and red shorts. I don't mind him, and I continue eating. I noticed that he was staring at me for a while, but he can't possibly be bad. My mom said that bad people look like your stereotypical homeless person and it just looks creepy. He was pretty good looking and fit, so he's probably just confused. He comes up to me and he asks, "Where are your parents?" I lied and said that, "Oh, they'll be back soon. Better to be safe than sorry." And then standing a few feet away from me, he says, "I've never seen you, or are you visiting?" I tell him, "Oh no, my laundry machine at home was broken." And then it starts getting weird. He puts his backpack down, and I realize that it's pretty empty. And I could see that this man was ripped. I put the chocolate away and get up to check on the laundry, and it only had a few minutes. He comes closer and asks me, "Are you Asian?" Like there's no point in lying, like I look like a stereotypical Asian kid. So I nodded. The next line's that I could still hear to this day. "Oh, I love Asian women, they're so pretty. I want one for a wife." He reaches into his bag and pulls out some candy. "Here, I see you like this," and he tried handing it to me. This is kind of messed, but when my grandma babysits me, she watches shows where men give women food or liquids. The woman consumes and then she goes unconscious, and the man does whatever. So at this point, I'm starting to look for excuses to leave. I'm not making this up. I see a teenage McDonald's employee outside eating, so I tell the guy, "Oh, let me ask my brother." I walk out, but the man is still following me. The teen looks at me and puts down a sandwich. I try to be as innocent but as straightforward as possible, and I tell the teen, "This man wants to give me candy, should I take it?" The teen looks at the man and then at me. I try to get him on the same page. "Mom said not to take candy from a stranger, but he looks nice." The teen gets it and looks at the man. Yeah, she's not supposed to be having candy, but thank you. The man having no shame at all. Oh, you're her brother, so she's adopted. Here, take my number if you ever want her off your hands. And he hands the teenager a paper. The crowd is starting to form, so the guy takes off. The teenager asked me if he should call the police, and I convinced him not to because my parents would punish me. So the teen walks me back to the laundromat to get the clothes. Tells me to come into the store with him. He then explains to probably his manager. He gives the paper to the manager, and the manager lets him leave so that he can walk me home. I get to the street and tell him that it's my hotel, and I thanked him and left. As I'm walking back, he stood there the whole time, making sure that I made it safely. To this day, I would like to think that they called the police after I left, and that the man is now arrested. But honestly, I'm not sure. Thank you, random McDonald's employee, for saving me. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. In my childhood and early teens, in our school holidays, we would spend most of the day roaming. We would take off on our bikes and we would be gone for hours. My friend and I went to a private school, so our holidays were different from the state schools. One afternoon in early September, we were playing in a park. I guess we would be about 9 years old. I remember a police officer marching up to us. She said, "Girls, I need you to leave this park. A dangerous man has escaped from police custody. Do not under any circumstances approach him, but if you see him, you need to call the police immediately." He's wearing, I remember her saying, a waistcoat, and then she gave a general description. Of course, we thought this was extremely exciting. I was reading Secret 7 stories at the time, where kids solve crimes, etc., in my child's head. I couldn't help but compare us to the kids in these books. So we left the park and carried on, meandering for a few more hours. We then headed down a road where children were finishing their school day, which was about a half a mile from the park. We were familiar with that school as we attended brownies there. But then I saw him. "Look, it's the man," I told my friend. He was standing close to the school gates, just staring at the children coming out. He fitted the officer's description perfectly. We dashed to a phone box and excitedly dialed 999. I told the police where we had seen him and that he fitted the description, but he was not wearing his waistcoat. The officer thanked us for a call. Then me and my friend continued with our day, excited that we may have solved a crime. It was only decades later that I remembered this memory with a shudder. The day came back to me very clearly, but with the insight of an adult. Of course, now we can all guess what that man was. Did the police take our call seriously? Did we prevent a child from being harmed? Did we also have a lucky escape when we played in the park that day? This just happened about 50 minutes ago. My sister, 24, and I, 26, work at the same place, so we ride together. I drive and she's the passenger and DJ. It's about a good 20-minute drive from where we stay, so we leave a little early so that we can get clocked in at our buildings at a good time. We turned from our apartment and got on the highway. Despite having to be up early every morning, today felt okay. The wind was blowing just enough that we were playing chill music and everything just seemed okay. We got to the light and there was this Hispanic guy in a white beat-up SUV, tapping his brakes to his music. We looked over at him because his car was jerking and it's pretty early in the morning, but his music seemed to be the only thing that you could hear other than the few big trucks that were on the road. The light changed and he punches it down the highway, but couldn't get far in his lane because of the truck that was in front of him. When we get to the next light and he's almost stomping on the brakes this time and is looking at us as he does. The light changes and he punches the gas once again. The further you get down the highway, the darker that it gets. The guy begins weaving through cars as fast as he can and ends up way ahead of us. What he does next makes us both say, "What the heck?" The guy slows down and gets right behind us, and he's staring at us. I could tell because I glanced in the rear view a couple of times, and his inside light was on. It's like he notices that we were looking at him, and he flicked on his brights. Whatever speed we were going, it's like he matched it perfectly, while staying dangerously close to us the whole time. He does this for 10 minutes straight. It felt like forever. I began to speed up, and usually there are cops posted at various areas, but there were none. So at this point, I'm speeding, trying to get away from this guy. Unfortunately, to get to our workplace, we have to take a back road. As we turn down to the back road, so does he. I stomp on the gas, and at this point, we're flying down the back road. I'm not really worried about potential deer or other animals. I'm just trying to get my sister and me away from this guy ASAP. He speeds up and is right on us like our cars are connected, and then he slows down and puts some distance between us, but then he gets right back on us. He does this for the remainder of our drive. For some reason, the road seemed longer today. We were just hoping that this nightmare would end soon. The same song that he was listening to when we first saw him seemed to be on repeat. I was definitely tired of hearing it. And we get close to the four-way stop that leads to the gate, and we have to badge into it. Before we get to the four-way, the guy thankfully slows down and turns off onto a side road. We don't know if he knew there was a workplace up the way that we were going or not. We were just glad that we were going into a place that he couldn't have easily gotten into. This was probably the only time we were happy to come into work. When I was 18, I used to work in a grocery store as a cashier. I got along pretty well with most of my coworkers. We used to take lunches all together in the break room because there was only one big table for everyone to be seated. Everyone would talk to everyone, except for this one guy. Let's call him Jeff. Jeff was the butcher at our store. He wasn't mean to anyone, he wasn't weird or anything. I used to think that he was more shy because he never talked to anyone other than the other people of his department. Sometimes though, when people would tell jokes, he would smile, laugh a little, so I just guessed that he didn't want to be disrupted and he wasn't really a friendly person. I used to be a supervisor when this story happened. One night I came to work to close the store. I went upstairs first and then went to clock in and talk with my manager to see how everything was going before starting my shift. When I went into her office, the first thing she told me was something along the line of, "If the radio calls, say you don't know anything. Do not answer their questions, do not get involved." I was genuinely confused about what was going on. I just arrived and already it was implied that there was something big going on. I had no idea what the heck was happening. Eventually, she told me that somebody in the store was accused of murder. I was shocked, I couldn't believe it. At this moment, I had no idea of what had happened yet. I ended up figuring out that it was Jeff with the conversations going around. Basically, Jeff lost it the night before. He killed his father, who was an old retired policeman. He had attacked him with a katana. The media has also revealed that a few years prior to that, his brother and him had been involved in a number of SA stories. The most disturbing part to me was that Kine worked with him the day before the guy ended up not being found guilty. I think because he was psychotic the night that it happened. I'm a 19-year-old male around the time that this story happened. When I was a freshman in college, I went to a school and lived in a dorm that was located in a busy city. Parking at the school meant trying to find street parking and having to pay a meter every however many hours. I opted to park at my uncle's apartment complex located a city away, in the suburban town that I grew up. I would park at his apartments and take a bus downtown to my school. On weekends when I wanted my car, I would bus back to the transit center near his apartments, walk back to my car. It was a little under half a mile. One weekend afternoon, I took the bus ride to go and fetch my car. After getting off the bus, I started walking to the apartments. I noticed a girl walking a short distance ahead of me. She was probably 5 years older than me. Shortly after I noticed her, she noticed me and she began to walk slower. It didn't take long before I caught up to her. She waited until I was next to her and asked me what time it was. Not thinking anything of it and being polite, I answered. She continued walking with me and we made small talk. At this point, I just thought that she was friendly. She informed me that she also lived in the apartments that I was headed to. We continued walking and making small talk until I made it to my car. When we got to my car, she started commenting on how nice it was, which was the first red flag. My car was a 91 Corolla, and by all accounts, not a very nice one. At this point, she started getting closer to me as I was loading my backpack and items into my car. Her demeanor changed and I could tell at this point that she was visibly trying to flirt with me. Now for context, I had a girlfriend at the time who I was very faithful to, so the situation had started to feel very uncomfortable. She then asked me if I would come with her to her apartment. I explained to her that I had a girlfriend and that I couldn't come with her. It was at this point that she crossed the line. As I was getting ready to get into my car to leave, she reached forward and grabbed my crotch, asking me if I was sure I didn't want to come with her. I quickly swatted her hand away and firmly stated, no. I quickly got into my car, turned it on, and backed out of the parking space, leaving her standing there bewildered that her forced attempt had failed. I left, confused and uncertain of what had just occurred. Now, it is true that this could have just been a lonely girl that wanted company, but the lengths she went to convince me to come back with her leave me unconvinced. For the longest time, I looked at this memory as humorous, but as I've gotten older and pondered it more, I see now how dangerous that situation could have been. I wondered this day what might have been waiting for me if I had stupidly had followed her. My intuition tells me that I may have been mugged by her and possibly other people waiting in her apartment, but maybe I'm just paranoid. Either way, I'm glad that I was smart enough to get out of that situation. This happened in 2020 and I was pretty young at the time, and this guy, let's call him Ali, slides into my DMs. Initially, I ignored him for a while, but then I got curious, so I replied with just a hi. He responded immediately asking me my name, location, and gender. I was being dumb, so I told him everything true except my age, which I said I'm 16. He was turning 19, close to 20. The same night, he started excessively telling me what our future would be together, how many kids he wanted with me. Keep in mind, we had only been talking for approximately an hour or two. And then it got worse. He wanted to see pictures of me and he was quite persistent, and he wouldn't stop until I sent one. I just sent a random picture on Google. As time went on over the next month, he kept messaging me, wanting more, but I always declined and he still talked about what he wanted to do to me. He got angry, threatening me, telling me to look out, that he would take the next flight to me. I then got scared and told him my real age to try and make him stop. But surprise, it didn't, and then he sent the text, "Are you scared?" In my native language, I about crapped myself. I didn't know where he was and I didn't trust the location that he sent me. So I blocked him. I unblocked him like a year later and he sent another message telling me to look out because he was in my country. He was drunk so I could see it in how he typed. He told me that he was with other girls now that were prettier than me, but still, he scared me again. So I blocked him again. I later found out that after I blocked him for the first time, he moved on over to a new girl in a town close. Ali is really just a big weirdo and everybody needs to be on the lookout for people like him.